We are live on YouTube, and now we're going over to Facebook too. If you're here and just getting started in the replay later, give this a like and share as we get going there. And what you cannot see is that behind me, beside me, and with me, I've got Katia Palmery, and we are having fun. We're live on Facebook, so now those watching there can see you, my friend. So how are you, Katia Palmery? It's great to be with you today. Ooh. How are you?
I'm doing better.
Right?
I'm doing great, actually, tonight.
Awesome. Well, you look phenomenal. I love you with your hair down, and that's part of what we're going to talk about tonight as well. Not just the looks on the surface, but the down deep stuff that is what it is really, truly all about. And so without a doubt, I am grateful to be your co-host today, Laura J, with Katia Palmery, and we are here for the next episode of The Kingdom Within, the journey inward, helping you in the transformation of your self-image through the hero's journey of your own life, realizing that you are the authority, the author I tie my identity to of your own life. And it is time for us to stand tall in that remembrance, becoming a member of our own self and our own identity, the self-image that becomes the glass ceiling that stops us from breaking through. And instead we break down because we don't know how to deal with the feels. That's what we're talking about tonight. Katia, what do you think?
Yes, we are. Yeah, it's so important. I'm excited to be underway with the topic tonight of, our emotions, and it always starts with the inside out, and looking at what's going on the outside and really questioning, rather than questioning why is that going on the outside, we can start taking it and looking at it more inwardly. So it's really looking at what's going on inside here, and what can I do to stay empowered and be able to take control and be able to, take the bull by the horns and, transform the situation and the emotions by doing some different things. And that's what I guess we're going to be talking about tonight, is what some of those things can look like to help us ride through these emotions. Because as I mentioned to you, Laura, it's been a hell of a week. I've been on a major roller coaster of emotions, like I've never been before, actually, because we have a lot of things going on. And it means that there's a lot of things going on too on the inside, more importantly. So yeah, I'm excited to be able to have this conversation and be in it with you, Laura.
Yeah, absolutely.
With everyone else who's on board here.
Woo! Yes, truly, we are blessed. And so this is actually, I'll be honest, it's got Jesus Has My Back on the back of it, and two other shirts that were from the same thing had that same expression on the back. And I don't know how I feel about that, because I am really about taking, I'm about getting back to the man, like Yeshua, and he's the man, and then Jesus was the suit that went over top of the man's identity to make him be what we think is the Christ, forgetting, because we're taught to idolize him, gaining idol eyes to see the guru within, which is why if we can be the authority that actually writes a story we love telling. And it's not always pleasant to tell our story either. And sometimes it's not even our story to tell. And so, Katia and I are being very vulnerable and transparent because we believe that it matters like never before. because it's not comfortable. And vulnerability, I've got Brene Brown's The Gifts of Imperfection nearby, which is a new copy I haven't went through and highlighted again, because I actually gave away my copy before I went over the edge and fell into my heart, in fact. And the thing about that experience of going out of my head and into my heart is that no longer did it make sense in the real world, the normal world, the literal one. Because this is the thing that we're not really talking about, and we're definitely not taught. Like, there's a literal world where it's realistic evidence appearing legit in tomorrow's yesterday, which is my acronym for reality. Or I lost my train of thought totally. Where was I?
You're saying it's, from what I can gather, that we come from the mind versus the heart. So there's this tendency that we have to potentially be more calculative in our way. The way we handle and take on things is very much in the mind, and we get caught up in stories, and we can create all kinds of things, where coming from the heart is where authenticity exists and where truth exists.
Couldn't have said it any better myself. Sometimes there's just like, forget what you're saying so you can make space for someone else. So sometimes I go off on my tangents, and I just think it's just so brilliant how it all fits together. And then the most brilliant thing is about making space for potential to come. Because even yesterday, I was actually watching the TV, or Rice TVX, if you're familiar with Chris Rice. He hosts.
No.
He interviews a lot of the common law experts. He's also into cryptocurrency. But every Sunday for 20-something episodes, him and Ethan Lucas have come together to talk about the Bible and some of the quotes in scripture, which I see to be the script you are. And then, gospel being go spell. Though someone commented when I wrote that, God spell. So we were talking last time about the words that become the boxes that we live within, essentially, that we define ourselves by. And so I'd really love getting back to, vulnerability. That was really where I fell off the tracks, because it's not comfortable. And sometimes when we get into uncomfortable situations, we actually switch on our fight or flight, freeze or fawn response mechanism, where the neocortex mind of the human actually loses the blood supply, because it's all directed to the mammalian or reptilian mind, right?
Right.
So I'm going to throw it over for you to segue into what feels most appropriate for you. And we'll come back to why I mentioned Ethan Lucas and Chris Rice as well after that.
Sounds great. So you bring a good point in regards to vulnerability. And I think the tendency for myself, where I was coming from, was I never really took on emotion in a healthy way. So what I would do is I would actually suppress a lot of the times to appear to be handling everything just fine. Like I've got it. And in actuality, there's times where I haven't been able to quite grasp what's going on and understand what's going on inside of me. And rather than be vulnerable and sharing that and actually taking on the emotions that are arising, because sometimes anger does arise and sometimes sadness does arise. And it's perfectly fine, because it's how we take on what's going on outside, but it's really a reflection of what I find out later is going on the inside. Yeah. So rather than suppressing that, and in suppressing it, that it's not going to be let go. It's going to still be in the space that you're holding. Mm-hmm. What I've learned even just in this last week, as I said, I've been going through quite an ordeal in regards to taking on and understanding what's going on inside of me,
Mhm.
I actually ended up taking time to just cry for hours, actually. And I just took that on as a healing, as a detox almost, because I realized that, the tendency is still there to create stories about what's going on because our minds want to do that. So we're looking at, Ukraine, and we're looking at, the freedom convoy, and
Mhm.
I was taking it all on and creating all kinds of stories that was having me spiral into a situation that obviously got to the point where I just needed to explode in a way, like just get it all out.
Mhm.
And so I gave myself that permission. I literally was in my bed, taking on every emotion that was coming, and it was the greatest release. Actually,
Yeah.
I felt like um, it was such a healing and, like I said, a detoxing feeling.
Yeah.
And in releasing that, I felt so much lighter,
Yeah.
and I was able to get more focused rather than feeling like in this disarray of confusion. So, being able to really get in tune with the emotion, allow it to arise, um, have it be expressed
Mhm.
is so, so healthy.
Mhm.
And I think that's one way to kind of cope with what's going on right now, is to allow that to happen.
Yeah.
And I know that that helped me this week. And actually, today is really the first day I feel back to kind of myself. But it
Yeah.
took a good week. It took a good week because there's a lot going on. I'm sure everybody's in the same boat. You've got everything going on outside of you, and potentially there's relationship issues. How can there not be? Because everyone's in their own coping mechanism, and we're all trying to communicate and get along and understand. And so it does really just it really matters in self-care, and starting with you and taking or starting with me on the inside. And that then leaves a space when I'm engaging my own family, my daughters.
Yeah.
I'm going to be an empowered state versus someone who's in disarray herself.
Yeah.
How about you? What have you done? What has your
Honestly,
week been like?
yeah, the last week, up until the weekend where I connected with other like-minded individuals, men and women, in common unity with music and laughter and nerves and feeling the insecurity. I actually launched a 66 Days to Transform Your Self Image series today. And it was sparked on the weekend, actually, in this interaction, and realizing that I have been working on the book that rewrote me for so long that then I stopped working on it because I've started it over hundreds of times, would not even be an exaggeration. And I've also, in that time, written so many blog series, and I've done so much that it's like I don't even know how to put it all down to like finish the first book, because it's not even about the book anymore. Now it's just like the first in a series, right? And I say this because it sounds like I'm like, ooh, like I'm going, you know what I mean? Like my engine's like kitty's purring and it's ready to go, you know? But it's just like the truth is that this came after a really low week and a half as well, and going through my own feelings and the discomfort. And I'm so grateful for my lawman, I call him, that I've has been a mentor with the summons that I got. But then also we're working with the Right Use of Will series by Cian Rohan. And it's so powerful because it's the four aspects of mother, mater, which is the divine feminine. And then you have God, which you can just consider God energy if that's not the linguistic box that you put the creator of all of it, including the box and what's outside and inside of the box, whatever you want to call that energy, like you just store that. Anyway, I diverge into all of this just because in order to make space for this, like body has to process the emotion and store the emotion and receive the emotion and reintegrate the emotion. And so like mother God awareness and then heart, which is required because that's where the mind and soul connect, and then magnify or magnetize our desires, which de is of and sire is to give birth to. So it's like, what is your heart's desire? And then when you get knocked off, it's like, is this mine? And the reality is that we all have fragments of ourselves in lots of individuals outside of ourselves. Like if we don't have capacity for our greatness, which is what my lawman and I talk about oftentimes. It's like that's just one example that's written in the 8-part series. But it's just like if we don't have full capacity or acceptance for our greatness, that fragment of ourself will show up in another until we make space for it to come back into ourselves. But we also have to make that space safe enough for that fragment to come back in and recognize that, like the house party that I was at, it's just like you say house party and you're like, oh my God, I didn't say that out loud, did I? Oh my. Like you don't even take any pictures when you go out with people because it's like, oh God forbid someone saw me with you. Like how shaming is this whole cult you are of the culture that we've accepted, you know? But anyway, it's like at this party, you're meeting strangers that have a common connection through the one that invited us all. And then we have to figure out how to relate to one another. And I wanted to actually point out or ask you, because while you were speaking, it was like, oh my God, the realization for me is the fact that there's a level of unrelatability that we develop the further down the rabbit hole we go, because the truth is so offensive to so many that it's polarizing and it's activating unprocessed emotions within them. And it's just like I'm having a dialogue with someone that says when I went through my mental health experience, it was emotional warfare from their perspective, which from their perspective, they're correct because I activated everyone around me. That was like my soul's mission. I called people, I did Facebook Lives, like I activated, like at that time, like it was like 1,500 views in like, a month. And it's just like, that is uncommon, especially given how shadow banned I am now. But my point is it's just like it was emotional warfare from the perspective of someone that doesn't want to or feel like they have capacity to work through the emotions that were brought up with everything that I went through. And then also, the things that I experienced and the paradigms that I was literally experiencing overlaid, like accusations that, I fully admit didn't happen to me, but they do happen to people when someone is in a power position over one who has no choice, and they have a room key and a title or a suit that protects them. And if you do something bad and you're the patient and you're essentially the prisoner under the guard's jurisdiction, then they can do whatever they want to you and say, you're already crazy. Who's going to believe you? And that just diminishes the one willing to actually speak out and be emotional. Like I've got a diagnosis of bipolar, right? But that's like, we live in a universe of polarity. There is an equal and opposite to everything unless you're flatlining. And if you look at a heart monitor, that's not a good thing. So why do we want to live our life like that?
Yeah.
But this is the unrelatability point that kind of I just wanted to ask for your perspective about, because part of the divisive times that we're in is for everybody to have their own story. Like we can talk about, a story about Ukraine and Russia, for instance. that, you know, I shared earlier that's like, maybe.
Yep. Yep. No, it's a good point you make. I think for myself, it comes down to um, identifying what's true to each and every one of us. What we're being shown is all these things going on, and there's a lot being thrown at us, and we're digesting it all. And the question comes up, it's like, what do we believe? Like, what? And so it always has to start with ourselves. And so that's part of the inner work and really getting clear on, you know, when I was doing my own searching this last week, it would be more about, so what's coming up for me, and what why am I getting triggered, and why is this activating me, and so forth. And I thought what would be neat is to share with everyone. So my husband and I have created a self-knowledge operational manual called Source Codes, and it's really a way to discover your true nature. And so I really feel that the way to start in identifying and getting through, you know, tough situations, or just like we're going through right now, is really just taking on a discovery within each and every one of us, to identify what's true to us. And that way we're, you know, in a space that's more whole and complete, that's more from the truth of who we are. And it also creates a space of possibility, which is what I think the goal is to always come from, you know, what's possible versus what's, you know, the impossibility that shows up. So one of the first principles is purpose, and it's really identifying something that's greater than ourselves, and that we can be counted on. It's like, what would you be able to speak up about, or that you would take a stand for? And now all of us have that, by the way, and some of us have identified it through just things that have come up over the years, and some are about to.
Yeah.
But it's really identifying what is it that I can stand for. And it could look like you could be an advocate for well-being and health, or you could be an advocate for mental wellness, children advocacy. There's all these different things, and usually it's something that if it happens out there, you'll get really like passionate about, or you'll become like a spokesperson for it as it happens, maybe spontaneously. So what is it that we can do that's something greater than who we are, and that, like I said, it could be something that we get known for. Like they'll say, okay, we know Katia is going to be someone who's going to stand for inclusivity no matter what. She's going to stand for that. So that's one way to start really taking on finding out the truth of who you are through purpose. The next one would be integrity. Integrity is hugely important, because we really we don't realize how we give our word to something, and then how it impacts us if, for example, we're not in our word. It actually creates a diminishment in who we are, and we get disempowered. So imagine if we've committed to doing something, and it's happened to me where I've committed to a number of things, and for whatever reason, I haven't come through. You don't really realize it, but what plays at us on the inside is there's a diminishment. Yes. So unless we restore our integrity, that will play in the space of everything we're doing. So it may not be visible or be apparent to you, but it is in the background.
Wow. Self-esteem. It's the
Yes.
self-esteem account is what I'm hearing you relate integrity to, which the word integrity itself is about coming into wholeness with who we are. And when I was 18, the very first tattoo that I got actually is integrity in all blocks, all caps letters. Wow. I got it on my my pelvic bone. So it's a bit of an inappropriate place to be like, hey, let me just like pull my pants down and show you this right now. Which was an afterthought, but I was 18 when I got it done, and I still love it. So I don't regret it at all. But it was like that when I heard the word, I didn't fully understand it, but it resonated with me at a level where it was just like, Yeah, that is the thing that I want to have on me as a brand for the rest of my life, integrity and wholeness. Like, I didn't understand it would lead me to here though. But then it's just
Right.
like, wow.
It's almost like you instinctively knew there was something about the word, and that you were driven by its essence potentially.
Fully. It's like I literally I pick up this paper because April 15th, 2020, I wrote about the fact that it's everything. It's time to prioritize finishing my book to offer people a special practice to support themselves through their awakening. Listening to others tonight share their awakening experience and breakdown was insightful because most of us have a breakdown when we are up leveling, which is what we experienced last week. It was just like I went into a super low place again. But you know what? The thing that my lawman and I talk about is it's just like, what if I was actually doing soul fragment recall because relationships in my life triggered me into actually loving the parts of myself that I had never been able to accept or love before? And so they were showing up into my experience in a very pathetic and unloved and just small way because I gouged my self esteem so many times and they were the target.
Right.
Like, what if we shifted our perspective so that we actually look at it from that perspective of it's just like, yeah, we really do have unlovable parts within us. If we've taken in Luciferian light, which is God's light in reversal, and if we think about love and fear being the only things that exist, light in reversal is simply false emotion appearing real in the now compared to the not now moments that take our power because we're in regret over the past or anxiety over a future that doesn't exist and we're fearful of, like this whole orchestrated performance of the War of the Skies that's connected to Project Bluebeam, or the war over in Europe right now that's supposed to lead to the Game of Thrones finale where all the families show up to face off. Face off, just take it off. And what do you get? You got a man or a woman underneath. There's flesh. This is how you pay. I can see you. So if you trespassed against me, you're the one. But if this was government, for instance, and you were acting in a public position and were trespassing against me and I could see you and you're signing my forms that are limiting me because I'm stepping into someone else's jurisdiction to use their form, which means I have to change my form in order to conform onto the form to fit. So boxes onto boxes onto boxes onto boxes, just taking on different forms because it's form versus substance, right? We're substance. Right. Form is what we have to fit into and then tell us to be or act like. And then you'll see who you are because you believe yourself to be other than you truly are.
Mm-hmm. So true. So true. And it makes me think about the boxes of language, which right now what could be at play, and it has been a bit for me, is the box of this good and bad, right and wrong. So right now we're being tested so much in regards to, the obedience, compliance. It's coming up for people, and it has for me, when you're told what to do and you don't want to be bad. And so there's this tendency, especially if the context, because I know I grew up in a context based on religion, that I was diminished, that I wasn't good enough. So it plays right into this wanting to be a good girl and do things right. So I can see these tendencies arise every once in a while, and especially now because there's so much going on. It's almost pointing to that. It's almost like, hey, how about this? Ooh, how about that?
Yeah.
And I can just feel that. I can feel it. So, I've been working on this for some time. So now I'm becoming, I've been in my awareness. I'm able to stop in my tracks and pay attention to, oh, here it is. It's coming into play again. That good and bad, or that right and wrong.
Yeah.
So it's becoming aware of those contexts that that have been driving our ways of being and acting and choosing, and they're so automated that unless we actually stop and actually pay attention to where these triggers are and how they come into us, they just will continue to play out. And it's so, and like I said, it's so habitual because it could be over a number of years that it's been going on, and it's so automatic. So this is what is important now, to really start looking inward and getting clear on, who am I? What makes me tick?
Yeah.
What are the things that I get triggered by?
Yeah.
Why do my emotions tend to go like this when something's said or something's done?
Yeah.
If we start to identify those things, we can then heal, let go, and be able to transform how we take on ourselves at a more empowered state, and how we obviously will take on our relationships and anything outside of us.
I love that. And there's a 4-part process that I've used for years that's super simple. And it's just a matter of asking yourself, is this mine? When it shows up, is this mine, or am I tuning into the collective consciousness right now and feel very uneasy because someone else's shit is penetrating the walls of my inner kingdom, and suddenly things smell and it's not comfortable any longer, and I just want to get out of here, but this is where I live, and what am I supposed to do? And then we have to play small because we just don't move the crap out of our kingdom and say, you're not welcome in here, because we don't know to look. So I've actually created a theory that I call choice point theory, which is just simply like, you're either in the negative cycle or you've reached the choice point where instead of doing what you've always done to get more of what you've always got, the choice is to breathe and to reset and to take a new action and do something that's uncomfortable, but you support yourself through it. And then you actually change your habits, which is why we're doing the 66 Days to Transform Your Self-Image series starting today, February 28th, 2022. So excited. But anyway, so is this mine? Yes, this excitement is absolutely mine. I've worked hard for this right now, so I'm feeling it. Where am I feeling it is a great question to ask. And then really just tune into your body. Where is this showing up? What is it trying to teach me? Is this mine? You'll get a yes or a no. Can I let this go? If it's not something that you want to continue feeling, then it's fear-based, which is false emotion appearing real. So when it's fear-based that's showing up as evidence in your now moment based on a not now moment, how does it feel? Not good, not yours. If it is yours, is it a part of you that's coming back into you that you're going to actually be able to support and show that you've developed a sense of inner security, which we're going to work on in future sessions. But is this mine? Yes or no? Can I let this go? Will I let this go? Am I willing? Are you willing to actually let yourself off the hook? Or have you got so familiar and accustomed to playing the victim because we live in a culture, which is the cult you are, that connects through wounds? Or will I let this go? Will I change the pattern? And then if not, why not? Why am I choosing to do the same thing over again and expect different results? Why am I choosing to punish myself and others for not getting out of my own way so that I can do something different and create a different result that's going to benefit us all? So that's the 4-part
I love
series.
it.
Yeah, or not 4-part series, a 4-step process rather. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one of the things we can take on based on what you just laid out is consider that potentially when we get stuck in a rut, and we're not sure why we keep doing the same thing, that potentially there's something to do with responsibility, because it is something to take on. Like if you start, it's like Marianne Williamson's quote. I don't know the whole thing off by heart, but it in summary says that we're actually more scared of our greatness than we are of our diminishment. Like we're playing small.
Yeah.
And it looks that way because when let's say we declare that, I am strong, I am, powerful. And what does that look like? Well, now it means you're going to be taking on responsibility at another level. And sometimes that can scare us because it's like, now what does that mean? It can be overwhelming sometimes because we feel like we've already got a lot on our plate. But responsibility is so key to, really taking on, exactly what's going on right now. It's easy to, like you said, blame. We can just point the finger and say, well, I'm not being this way because look at outside of me. It's all showing up a certain way. But in actuality, we're much greater than we think we are. And we have powers that we don't even realize we do. And when we think about how we speak and the words we say, those are creating a future every moment.
Yeah.
If we really looked at how much we're creating in the moment of just even speaking.
Yeah.
So we are much more powerful than we can imagine. And it does require integrity. It requires responsibility. It requires authenticity, really knowing who we are, the true nature of who we are. And coming from that place is already a place of empowerment. So when you're able to just anchor yourself or anchor ourselves in identifying what's true to us, and it even starts with documenting what is important to me. It's even just as simple questions as what's important to me, what do I value, what are the principles I want to live by that's true to me, and that I wouldn't alter or falter from those, because that's how incredibly important they are to me. And once you identify that, it's something now you can stand in and anchor yourself in and be able to take on anything that comes to you, because those values and principles are the foundation for how we can operate and overcome anything that comes our way.
I love it. Yeah, virtues have to become the foundation for the new Bill of Rights that we are all eligible for if we actually know how to not only claim our rights, but exercise them and back them up. And this actually, while you were speaking, I wanted to just mention empowerment. EM. Is that not oftentimes referred to as God? EMC squared is energy, right? And so if we actually look at M as God, power, and then ment of the mind. So it's just like inner power mental, because we're choosing to actually change the pattern. And then the other thing that I wanted to say while you were just tying into something you had said earlier is about, like, is this mine? Is this even my pattern that I'm replaying? Because when I was in first year university, in the summer after I stayed in Hamilton, and I worked in Hess Village and at Stitches in the mall at Jackson Square Mall for a few months, and I met the first man that I thought that I was going to marry. And I've never been married, and I wouldn't get married because that's bringing the government into a relationship that I just want to have with my man. You know what I mean? So for me, marriage isn't so much my bag. But at the time, I was in Hamilton and I met this man, and then I almost dropped out of university to marry him, and then was going to switch into early childhood education so that then I could babysit other young ones and teach them while raising my own, and it's just like, that's exactly what my mother did. like she had my brother when she was 19. She had me when she was 20. She was a dental assistant, and then she had to give that up in order to stay home and babysit us and the other kids. I just remember the raccoons that we we got because somebody had killed their mother at the farm, and so then they brought them to us. I just remember these baby raccoons, and don't ask their fate because that was devastating as well. But anyway, I love these little raccoons. That's like a childhood memory that I have, which is just totally random, but it made my heart smile. So I just thought I'd bring it in, less the ending part of it. But sometimes it's better not to know the happily ever after ending, right? Because the happily ever after starts the life together, and it's not a happy ever after every day. Like, we're never going to always be okay, but if we can actually learn how to help ourselves feel okay in the moment, we can talk ourselves through. It's like Nightbird, who just passed. She's such a beautiful soul that was on, I think it was American Idol or one of the shows, but she got the golden confetti and she sang the most amazing song. I'll put it back in the replay, which then there's the whole copywriting issue. So maybe I won't, and I'll just recommend that you do it, and I'll post the name of her underneath, because she passed away on Sunday and was such a beautiful soul. And there are a lot of souls that are transitioning right now, which is actually more connected to all of this than what we've ever talked about publicly specifically, because ultimately there are going to be a lot more souls that are going to be transitioning, and we all have to be prepared to deal with that emotionally, because we're going to lose the fragments of those that we love the most. And we're going to meet more people, and ultimately we have to remember that we are the players on the field at this time. Like, new souls that come in are new souls that are in, but otherwise we're it. And so, I have a lot of damage control or repairing to do within relationships within my own life, in full transparency. And ultimately, I've got a lot of work to do to, clean up the scorched earth around me, because I was angry. There was going to be another word in there, but in case children are watching, I'm going to reserve that, though they probably know how to use it better than I do. Because the young ones today are being exposed to so much more, so that their innocence is corrupted. Because if we break down innocence, we see inner sense.
Yeah, it's so true. I can't even imagine being a parent of a young one right now. I have 3 adult children, and I'm concerned as can be still, but I would be a little bit more concerned, definitely, with the young ones right now and everything that they've been truly having to take on and bombarded with. And God bless the parents right now that are taking that on top of everything else. That's why it's so important, because even as parents, the responsibility of guiding children in, through this, and dealing with our own crap that's going on the inside. So it's it's the best time, I think, right now, if there was ever a time to take on going inward and really doing the inner work to discover how we can become more whole and complete with ourselves, anchored in truth, because then that is going to set the foundation for how we take on life outside of us, and how we influence each and every person, especially our children, who look up to us and watch us, and we're their greatest teachers, and they're also a teacher to us. But I think it's just an important time for this type of conversation about going in. And another thing that came up as you were talking was, so a lot of the times I found myself too, is when you get into these, let's call them these dark situations. We're in our head and we're dealing with these emotions and it's feeling so heavy. And it's like, it's all about me. I'm in this distressed time. And I found, because I've had to have conversations, I couldn't just, lock myself up and not deal with the world. So I found what helped was, and I'd have a conversation with my daughter who was in breakdown. I found that being there for her, in a listening and really getting her world and, helping her through her own emotional breakdown was actually helping me, because I was able to relate exactly to her breakdown because I was similarly having some sort of breakdown.
Yeah.
And by helping and by being there and a listening for her, I actually helped myself.
Yeah.
So when we're in this thing, it feels like you want to be alone. You want to put the covers over your head and just hide. And it's like, there's a time and a place for that. And I have taken, like I said, I cried for hours. But what I found helped as well this week is being open to having conversations and not making it about me so much, but being a space as much as possible for someone else. And in actuality, what ended up happening was I was able to almost identify some of the things that were going on inside of me through someone else. So it's helpful to, synergize with other people and, if possible, to be with community, to be contribution to someone, and in magically in doing that, we actually help ourselves. It's like that giving, and then you receive.
Yeah.
I actually put it to work this week, and it was one of those things that helped me through this whole process of dealing with my emotions and dealing with what was going on inside and identifying, what are those things that keep coming up for me. And I just thought that was another useful tool, another useful thing.
Yeah. I was going to say, when you mentioned about parents, firstly, none of us are islands. We're all born into tribes, and some of us have a different level of belonging or association with the tribe that we came into originally. But right now we are in a refinding of soul tribe as well. So sometimes we have to really be mindful of how those in our lives make us feel. And if they have a lot of unloving light within themselves because they haven't accepted themselves, we have to be mindful of limiting their access to us, because ultimately there is an energetic vampiric aspect to narcissism, which is the culture of heartless ones. Not because the man or woman is heartless, but because the indoctrination, and I did say doctor nations, ultimately are designed to program the heart out, to suppress the will. Because every time we step into the box of another one's jurisdiction, we ultimately have to sacrifice our own will for the sake of thine will. Thine will, not my will, but thine be done. Well, who is thine? Like him, that's the HYMN of the universe. The hymn, the one song that we're all here to sing our part in. Input, output, reflection, as above, so below. Need to balance the scales. Absolutely. Absolutely, Grounded Bull. And Chad Parker over on YouTube he said, I am as well, which are the single most creative power words we can possibly realize, because the personas that are ultimately worn over top are reflections of the personas from within. It's just like I was going to say about parents being the pair of rentals that the rental guides, like it's the pair of rental guides that created us. One gave the sperm and the other one gave the egg. And then ultimately the mother is the one that's guaranteed to be there for the birthing of it. But like when you get birthed, like we talked about it last time, as a mom of 3, like you didn't just park your butt over and then just like pop your passengers out. Like you fully gave life, and it hurt.
It hurt like hell.
Right? Well, what is hell but the experience of pent up fear that is then released in the embrace of a loved one that actually came through the portal. Like you were a friggin' portal, woman. Like celebrate you. That is an amazing feat to do. And we just want to make sure that it's possible for the next generation, that don't all get sterilized by all of what could be injected into organic organisms and then corrupt them into being something less than they originally were, because it's different. And then that's where we can fall into the fear, and I say this at 8:55, or we can say, you know what? I spoke to a woman that she had written me for a notice of liability for her husband. And she had asked for the template after I had done a presentation on notices and liability, with an extra E for the lies and the ability of the ones to wield the words that become the wands, which is why we got into this with the I am being the most important letters, or the most significant statement. I digress. I lost my train of thought again. I just am loving the fact that we've got comments. I so appreciate comments. Like you don't even know. Like it is distracting. And I know, Katia, you can't see it. And on YouTube, you can't see Katia. I will repost the replay. And I am figuring out how to get the live stream so I can do it to Zoom and YouTube at the same time, but I've just had a lot of problems figuring out how to actually get Zoom to stream live to YouTube. So I haven't figured it out yet. I don't have all the answers. I am I don't want to be a one-man band. I don't want to be a rolling stone alone, putting miles on the rundown van. That's what Old Dominion, 8:55 last week or earlier this week. No, I guess last week now. That song came on. I know that it was like, I felt like it was my grandma putting it on, and there was huge healing around that. And it was just the next song very significantly. And I feel like we diverged, or my brain went off of what I was talking about, because it's another rabbit hole we can go down next week, Mondays at 8 p.m. Please definitely tune back in then, and Katia and I will come together and bring out more. But the song after Old Dominion, One Man Band, which is the lyrics that I started to sing there, was, I don't even know what the song was specifically, but it's just like, you can until you can't. It's just like, you can go fishing with your dad when he calls, but then work, gets busy and you cancel, and you can until you can't. You can put the ring on the finger of the one that you want to be with, but you think maybe tomorrow, and so you can wait until you can't. And like, we're at that place now. It's like, you can until you can't. Like, you can choose until you've chose, and then choice, consequence. And we're at a place where informed consent is not being is not proper right now, and there's just so much that we can't talk about, so that we are able to have this experience of being together and talking about truth. And our commitment is to share the truth in an alternative way and an authentic way. So thank you for bringing that to the table this night, Katia, and the nights before and that will come. I'd love for you to wrap up tonight with a final sentiment from our time together tonight.
Absolutely. So what I want to leave everyone with is, just like we were talking about with childbirth, it's not easy. We come into this world being squeezed through a canal, and it's like a life and death kind of experience, and we're coming through, and there's tension and uncertainty, and like, am I going to make it? And out of that pain and out of that uncertainty, look what happens. We've actually get to experience this life. And so as we go through these uncertain times and we're going through these breakdowns, just know that on the other side of that breakdown is going to be clarity, is going to be a clear understanding of truth. So just remember, as you're going through these difficult times, that take on the emotion, don't suppress it, and know that on the other side of that, something's going to become more clear to you, and it's going to be another leveling up in understanding who you are.
Love it. Thank you for helping in the remembrance of who and whose you are, Katia. Laura J, absolute pleasure to be with y'all today. And want to say too, next Friday, not the first Friday of March, but the second, on the 11th at 2 p.m., we're going to be having a summit that is actually unpacking some of the mental manipulation and programming at play right now. And Katia and her husband, Peter, are going to join us. Wayne Peters with Ethics Over Fear in WhatsApp Canada. Plus, I've got a couple other friends that I want to make some intros and get a panel of big thinkers to come together. And the only reason I didn't say your name is because I don't necessarily know your story or what you know yet. And maybe you're not somebody, I'm speaking to you who is watching us here in view. I might not know your story, and you might not be one that wants to share your story specifically, but you know someone who has an amazing story. And so what we want is to know which influencers, whether big names or no names, that is all relative. Everything is relative. But we want to know who you think would benefit us to connect with, to help in the remembrance of who and whose you are underneath all of the BS that we're told is us, when our self-image is ultimately our CELL-F for whether we're filling ourselves with fear or faith. So thank you for tuning in tonight. Give this a like, share it with a friend, and definitely sign up ljeh.ca, and you can be part of the 66 Days to Transform Your Self-Image series that is going to become fully committed. The book that rewrote me before the world got to see it. And Katia, thank you for showing up, fully holding space, being just so awesome. I celebrate you for daring to show up after all of that, because I know how raw it feels, having felt that way myself, and continue to show up anyway because it was required, because of the commitment that I've made to myself, because I have pulled back, and that made it so I ate so much more than just dirt. I ate my words. Don Miguel Ruiz, The Four Agreements, another phenomenal resource, because be impeccable with your word is the first agreement that we must make with ourselves. So yeah, lots of little extras and tidbits. Any final piece that you want to bring in, and we'll take it home?
I would just go back to just taking on, again, the look at yourself, look inward, and find the truth, because truth will set you free.
I love it. Martin K over on YouTube has said, walking the dog at 2 a.m. in Ireland listening. Never felt so soulful. Thanks, folks. Amazing. Wonderful. Thank you. So cool. We appreciate you for tuning in, and you all have an amazing night or day. Thank you. Appreciate you. Toodaloo. Just got to end this. Thanks.